So Brian Kelly out at LSU. They need to start looking for who's going to replace him. And I think we can all say that while Brian Kelly win-loss record, it was a success. I think we all understand where the LSU people are coming from as college football fans, because that was never a fit. We could have told you that. Look, I grew up less than an hour from where Brian Kelly grew up. And I'm not trying to sound like what Brian Kelly sounded like in that introductory press conference. This is a kid from the mean streets of Everett, Massachusetts, man. He's not Baton Rouge, which is fine. Just don't try to be that. Remember, there were all kinds of questions at LSU when Nick Saban went down there as a relatively unproven head coach, that he could handle the South and Louisiana and the SEC. And you went from a guy who understood that better than almost anybody living in Ed Orgeron to a guy who just doesn't. And Brian Kelly, and the results are what the results are. Got a Heisman Trophy winner, but not much else. You know who did pretty well in Louisiana? You know who did pretty well in Baton Rouge and for LSU? Dave Aranda. And Dave Aranda might be looking for a job when it's all said and done at the end of this college football season. LSU can afford him, even though they're going to pay Brian Kelly a ton of money. They can afford him. And this is a guy who was majorly successful there. Okay, comes in from Wisconsin, becomes one of the highest paid coordinators in all of college football when he got to LSU, and it was worth every penny. He delivered first-round picks, delivered a national championship. LSU has not won an SEC title since Dave Aranda left town. Coincidence? I'm always wondering, I know LSU has all this money. I know. But I always wonder, when you do that major buyout, how big a splash could you get in the next cycle? It's not very easy, right? I'm sure A&M would have loved to have gotten Nick Saban. Under normal circumstances, they would have been able to afford him. But it's like the meme of the kid at Five Guys. Don't have Nick Saban money. Mike Elko it is. And that was a great decision. You know, Mike Elko was cheaper, sure, but he had also had a ton of success coaching at A&M as a coordinator. And look what's happened. They're a top 5 team to the point where they beat down a team so bad in their conference, in their building, that it gets a coach fired. And now we're back to LSU, and we're back to Brian Kelly, and we're back to Dave Aranda. I hear it from Baylor fans, some who say that, you know, Dave Aranda is never going to be successful at Baylor because Baylor doesn't have the money. And Baylor doesn't attract the dudes, man. They just don't get the right dogs coming to campus. They can't help that. Dave Aranda can only deal with the players that he's got in front of him. And Baylor's just never going to have the players. You know who's going to have the players? Louisiana State. They always get the players. That's not a problem. Okay? Getting the talent to play in Baton Rouge at Death Valley in front of some of the greatest fans in college football, that's not a problem. So if I'm to believe that this is a bigger problem than Dave Aranda, which could be, that they just, with the new NIL space and the transfer portal and the money that's changing hands for players and agents in college football, that Baylor's just never going to be able to get the caliber of player it takes to succeed, even in the Big 12, let alone the national stage. If I'm to believe all that, then wouldn't it make perfect sense for LSU to go a bit of a cheaper route than Lane Kiffin or someone like that and bring in a guy who's had success there already in Dave Aranda? I've always said my biggest fear about Aranda was that he's Bill Belichick and we're the Cleveland Browns. And that at the next stop, he's going to have all the answers to the test. And he's going to figure it out. And he's going to build something truly special. LSU, don't you want a piece of that? I'm already starting to see the commentators on social media, the message board geniuses, and even some op-eds talking about the candidates for LSU. And Dave Aranda makes that list. He makes that list. And he's had an Orgeron on staff. Could bring Parker with him. Of course, he wouldn't be near the top, like the very top of LSU's list. I think that would be, don't think that would be Dave Aranda. I don't know if he'd be in the top 2, but as a third option, could be that. wouldn't be crazy for me to see Dave Aranda's number 3 on the big board at LSU. And at that point, he's very much in the conversation. How many times have we seen it the last few seasons where teams have had to, major programs have had to go down the list? Alabama's first choice was not Kalen DeBoer. It was not. And Alabama is the brand of college football. Their first choice was not Kalen DeBoer. For sure, Sarkisian and Kiffin were ahead of Kalen DeBoer. And maybe even their proud alum, Dabo Swinney. So if LSU does strike out on whomever their top 2 guys are, whether it's Lee at Vanderbilt or Kiffin at Ole Miss or whomever your guys, maybe they try Lincoln Riley, something like that. If those don't work out, Dave Aranda is sitting there with a pretty good understanding of what LSU is, what LSU can be, and with a pretty good resume that includes his time at LSU right at the top. So, should Dave Aranda be a candidate for LSU? Let me know in the comment section below. Then be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, as we will keep you briefed. That's not a word. On all that is going on in this Dave Aranda and Baylor football situation. But let me know how dumb I am or if I'm onto something right in the comment section below. Then like, subscribe, help us on the path towards 5,000 subscribers. We're the #1 Baylor football show on YouTube and bring it to you every day on this great site, as well as wherever you get your podcasts.